So yesterday, I posted a YouTube and Instagram poll asking my followers what books I should get at Indigo. So we're going to the bookstore. But first, breakfast. And of course, we're listening to Speak Now, Taylor's version, because it just came out. I was getting The Summer I Turned Pretty because it won on my Instagram poll, and When in Rome because it won on the YouTube poll. This wasn't any Indigo trip. I went into it with a plan, a list. Upon entering Indigo, I realized they had just restocked, so I went straight to the romance section. But When in Rome wasn't there. So I had a bit of a pity party in the stationery section where I found a beautiful Jerry planner, and all of a sudden, my mood was up again. Next, I went to the teen section to find The Summer I Turned Pretty, and I found the movie edition covers, but I couldn't find the first book, so I had a little panic over that. And then I found it somewhere else. They had shelved it somewhere else, which is kind of weird. That doesn't make sense in my brain. But I picked it up and was super happy because I got the last copy. I saw Love Life Farms, but it's a seasonal book, so I don't want to read it till the winter. So I decided I will get it next time. Then we're back in the romance section, of course. And then I saw Rock Bottom Girl by Lucy Score. I really want to read it, but I showed some restraint and put it back. And I saw Red, White, and Royal Blue. I wanted to get it, but I didn't know what copy to get. So I need to ponder on that. I saw The Hating Game by Sally Korn, which I really want my own copy of because I have read it before. But yeah, I didn't get it. And then I overheard some teenagers talking about how Indigo just restocked, and it made me so happy to know that I'm not the only person who's there often enough to notice. So I left with The Summer I Turned Pretty in my hands and lip-synced and listened to some Taylor in the car. And yes, it was early country Taylor because it's summer. Hey, so since I last saw you last week when we were at the bookstore, I may have gone back to the bookstore again and purchased When in Rome because I can't do this reading vlog without When in Rome. I'm sorry. So we are going to be reading The Summer I Turned Pretty and When in Rome. We're going to be starting with When in Rome because backstory time. I have read The Summer I Turned Pretty before. I don't own a copy, but I read it last year from the library and I liked it, so I want to annotate it and see if my reading taste has changed over the past year, because I know I rate a lot lower than I used to, because honestly I handed out 5 stars like nothing last year. So yeah, we have got these two. A reason I was hesitant to buy The Summer I Turned Pretty and hadn't yet is because I have the original like hardback, basically white cover that Jenny Han published the book as for the 3rd book. So I was like, I don't think these are in print anymore, and I got it from a library book sale and it was old, and I was hesitant because I wanted all the colors to match. They had to match, okay? So now I've decided I'm actually just going to be careless with my money and buy all 3 of the movie edition colors when the 3rd one comes out. So yeah, there's some backstory for you if you needed that. I am going to start reading. I'm going to turn on some music. I've got Coke. I've got all my annotating supplies. Let's see, do these match? They do match. We've got adorable. I'm using my fancy tabs because I wanted to read this book for the longest time. I got these tabs on Shein. I'll actually link them in the description. They're the absolute best. They're gorgeous, first of all, and they come in like autumnal colors and also in a bunch of pastel rainbow sort of things. So yeah, okay, I will see you guys as soon as I have an update for When in Rome.
I hate taking pictures. How often have I told you don't fight over your taste? My reply is emoji shade. Are you up to something? So you sneak through the curtains. Oh, the house is still silent. pointing to the wall upstairs. Hello, 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 hello. I hope that you don't mess with my peace of mind. And no, please, no, that's not gonna work, so you better cut it off. I knew.
Hello. We have moved to my sister's bedroom. So yeah, we have the twinkle lights, and yeah, this is my sister's room. I am in here because there's air conditioning. The conditioner didn't fit in my room because it's literally like packed and very small. So, reading update. I didn't vlog all too much when reading When in Rome because I literally flew through it so fast. It's only 300 pages. It was an enjoyable time. I am rating this book 3.5 stars. Whenever I hear someone say 3.5 stars, I never want to read the book and I'm like, oh, that's not that good. And I think it's a flop. This book wasn't a flop whatsoever. It's actually a really enjoyable read that I would recommend. If you really like small town romances, then this is one of the books I would recommend because the small town vibes are immaculate. My favorite character was Mabel, who is kind of like a grandma sort of figure to the love interest, Noah. So, yeah, I loved her a lot. She was everything in this. I like the couple. I would say they were more cute than chemistry driven. Like, they had chemistry. I'm not saying they didn't, but I wasn't like super invested in their relationship or anything. And, you know, I cared. I thought they were cute, but I wasn't invested and like on the edge of my seat the whole time. This book is hilarious. If you're looking for a good laugh, definitely go into this read. I really enjoyed it for the jokes, and it did have a fair amount of good quotes. Like if we're looking at my annotations, there are quite a few. There are some things I didn't like about the book, and there are a lot of things I liked. So let's start with what I didn't like. We'll get those out of the way. I didn't like how unrealistic the romance felt. The whole premise is she's driving to Rome, Kentucky, and her car breaks down in his front yard. And then he invites her in, and they like end up kind of almost vacationing in this. She like vacations in his house almost. Like, I found that like what? That's really unrealistic. I just found the romance aspect super unrealistic. Like, I like a little more realism in my romance. I don't like a ton of it. I'm very picky, but I don't like it to be this unrealistic because I find I can't identify with it that much. And even just how she was a pop star and that was the premise, not unrealistic because there are pop stars, but for a non-pop star, non-famous person such as myself, I found it a little bit unrealistic. Another thing I didn't like is I went into this looking for a book like the last book I read by Sarah Adams, which was The Cheat Sheet. I absolutely loved The Cheat Sheet. This was just a whole different book than that. Like, I got that it was a small town romance. It wasn't a sports romance. But this was completely different. It didn't even have the same feel, I would say. And normally I find authors write a similar genre, similar feel. The Cheat Sheet was like, I loved that book. I rated it 5 stars. I think about it all the time. This had a more classic storybook sort of feel to it. Now, The Cheat Sheet felt like a romance. It felt like I was reading a page turner. It felt like I was on the edge of my seat. All those sorts of things. And they were just honestly so different. And maybe if I went into this book with different expectations than my last Sarah Adams book, which was very chemistry driven, meanwhile this one was more almost personality, place, circumstance driven, almost. Things I liked about the book: Mabel, yeah. The small town, I loved how the small town was done in this. I did really like the guy. He was charming. I really liked the narration from the girl's point of view, Amelia's point of view. I liked how chaotic her mind was. Like, I remember one of the first things she said, she's talking to herself and she's like, yes, semi-okay is good. And then she's like, you made a bad choice. Now you get to be the next story on Dateline. Just how she thinks reminds me a lot of how I think and how chaotic my mind is. And I found her to be a very likable lead, just going through and reading her thoughts. I found her thoughts were never boring, if that makes sense. I want to be clear that I was never bored by this book. It was really short, and I was always interested. I did stay up till 3 a.m. reading it. So that says something. That says I was never bored. And I always wanted to know what would happen next. I will be continuing with the rest of this series. I did like this book enough to be continuing with this series. I did like this book. Like, overall, it was enjoyable. I'm gonna continue with Practice Makes Perfect, because if I'm being honest, I read this book to read Practice Makes Perfect because it's about a good girl and a bodyguard, and that just sounds right up my alley. And I didn't know about this book till Practice Makes Perfect came out, and then all of a sudden I was super stoked and had to read this book because honestly, I just wanted to read the second one really bad. And I really want to read about Annie. I'm really intrigued by her character because it honestly seems like a character very much like myself. Like a kind of goody two-shoes driven character, and I am known in my circles to be the goody two-shoes. Is it bad that it was a romance and I liked the main characters just fine, but all the other people in the town, I was like, oh my goodness, I want to know about their lives. Let's have a book about Mabel. That's how I felt. I would read Mabel's romance. I'm not joking. She was just so likable. Like Mabel's life story, a memoir from a fictional character named Mabel. Yes. So, that's One in Rome. We have The Summer I Turned Pretty. The font is ginormous because it is a YA book. We have 276 pages. So this will be even shorter than our last book. I actually have our tabs. I figure if I use the pink ones, it'll kind of go with the spine. We have our annotating highlighter and pen. So I'm gonna read. I'm gonna start this. And we're gonna see. I probably won't get that far tonight. I'm gonna watch some Haley Pham. I love Haley Pham. She's like the bestest YouTube. Like her booktube. Her booktube is so good. And yeah, we're gonna just get through this. We're gonna enjoy it. And before I start reading, last time I read this, I was Team Conrad. I can't imagine that changing. I'm also Team Conrad in the show. Anyways, I'm Team Conrad, but have nothing against Jeremiah. I do know a significant amount of spoilers through this book, though, through this series. Because I haven't read the second and third book, but I do know a lot about them, unfortunately. I just love Jenny Han books. They're such a good time. So I'm really happy to just be delving into a Jenny Han world again. Even though I have read this before, I remember thinking the summer vibes were immaculate, and I read it in the middle of the snowy winter. So, and I felt them. So, reading it in a hot summer, I'm sure I'll feel them even more. Okay, bye. I watched BookTube for a few minutes, and then I started The Summer I Turned Pretty. There's just something about starting a new Jenny Han book. I pulled up a pre-made playlist for The Summer I Turned Pretty, and it'll be linked in the description. I was already annotating the book from like page 1. The next day was Thursday, so I got some breakfast and did a little bit of breakfast reading. And then I went to the drugstore and wanted to get some nail polish because the book made me want to paint my nails. There's some weird reason. So I did that, and I watched a little bit more BookTube. The next day was Friday, and my family took us to the beach, their beach day. It was absolutely wonderful. I was resigned to my little tent though because I burn very easily, so I just read in my tent the whole 3 hours. I am literally Edward Cullen, guys. Like, I am so pale and I burn so easily. And as we headed into evening, I did a glitter coat on my nails. I had painted my toenails and they look fantastic. I painted the brown because brown is my favorite color. And I put glitter on top because I am very thorough. This is our 200-page update. Can I just assure you, I am more Conrad girly than ever before. I read this book last year and I don't remember liking it this much. I feel like I'm annotating it. So I feel like I really dissect what's being said, and this book is very meaningful. Like, I'm really going into the moms, like Laurel and Susanna, because I really like their characters, and just seeing all the things going on in that relationship. Because the first time I read this book, I found the back and forth between the crushes a little too much for me personally, because I was just so sure of Conrad. When I say I'm a Conrad girly, that does not mean I hate Jeremiah. I love Jeremiah, like, so much. He is a mama's boy. He's sweet. He's kind to Belly. He's a good person. He's just, they're all amazing, both in the show and in the book. But I feel like Jeremiah is more of a friend figure for Belly's life. And that's how I did feel when I read it the first time too. I just see Conrad, kind of the dark and broody character who's playing his guitar, listening to music, reading books, sitting in his room, being all introverted and broody. That is my type of character, okay? That if there's a broody, misunderstood guy in a book who clearly is introverted, then I'm most likely to choose him. That's just the fact. So, Cameron's cute. Yeah, Cameron's cute. I mean, like, do you even think you're in the competition, dude? But this is just, it has so many quotes. Like, I'll be like, oh, that was a good quote. And then I'll just end up, like, highlighting most of the page. That's what happens. There was... I'm at exactly page 200. So I just finished a chapter and it ended. I probably shouldn't say that. That's a spoiler. I actually can't remember what happens after this, weirdly enough. Like, I know the last chapter what happens, but can't remember what happens in between here and then. So I'm very excited. I'm going to finish this tonight. I think I'm going to go read outside on the patio. Reading on the beach today was the absolute best. I cranked through 160 pages. I just read till my heart was content. We were there. I was reading for like 3 hours. My star rating, I'm not sure what it's going to be. If it's going to stay at 4.5 stars or if it's going to go up or down. We will just see. I have a good feeling about this. I don't think it will be going down. I thought it was so childish before the first time I read it, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's really deep. Like, it's really relatable. Like, Jenny Han, we all know Jenny Han has skills. If you've read To All the Boys I Loved Before, like, I didn't finish season 1 of the show. Here is why. It was going into territory, like it hadn't been for a while, but it was going into territory where I hadn't read it yet. And it was going beyond the first book, like it was talking about the dead ball. If we could take it from Conrad's perspective and just make it about the two moms and Conrad. Anyways, I'm starting chapter 32. I'm gonna go read outside and we're gonna have the bestest of times.
You look so good. In the same neighborhood, and that's how the rub salt in the wound. Spend a few hours on the reservoir. Never broke a bone, so I'm gonna try hard.
So I forgot a lot of that stuff happened. And I'm heartbroken. Of course I remembered, but I didn't think it happened that early. I thought it was in the second book, and I read the first 2 chapters, the bonus chapters of the second book, and oh my goodness, they're so sad. Summer books do not have the right to be this deep and sad. I'm so glad I read it though. I will be rating it 5 stars. We went up. It was 4.5 stars last year, and this year I am rating it 5 stars because that's just how it felt. This book is feels so much closer to my heart than it did last year, and I loved it last year even. I love Laurel and Susanna so much. Laurel reminds me a lot of my own mother, and Susanna's almost like a fairy godmother. She's just, I am still on Team Conrad. A lot has happened. I love Jeremiah more than ever before. I'm not getting over this book anytime soon. The font is quite large, so the cousin's beach house, that is my home now. Believe it or not though, I don't really like Belly. I find she's a very relatable character. Like, I definitely related to her at points, like through most of the book. And the way Jenny Han writes her is very well done, and she wrote her very well. I find Belly a little bit indecisive, and oh my goodness, I'm done this book. I need to go buy the second one so I know what happens. Can't really go into more detail without spoiling things, I don't feel like. There are so many things with this book. You just have to read it yourself. I suggest you read it before the summer ends. And this book makes me just feel nostalgic. They're things I've never had. It makes me feel so warm and cozy inside. I will be posting a written review of this book right here to my Instagram, to my Goodreads, and possibly to my Pinterest. So I will link my Instagram, Goodreads, and Pinterest all in the description. I have been posting stories and reels and posts regularly on Instagram lately. So if you want to see me before I post my next video next Saturday or sooner, then follow me over there. I am so happy to have you. Thank you for watching this summery reading vlog we've had. This has been really fun. I've had a great time. And I wish you all the most sunshiny vibes. I will see you soon. Okay. Bye. Remember to go read this book.
That's not funny at all. They said I'm introverted, skin and bone, and I know I'm